I was actually driving here listening to NPR, and it was interesting because I call myself a design ethnographer, and I've kind of gotten in trouble for it in the past because I don't have an actual anthropology degree. But I've been in the research space for over 15 years, and some of the most exciting things that we've learned is really to approach people contextually and understand how they live and not just what they say. So the report this morning was kind of funny because the guy said, in America, people report that they go to church. What percent of the time, what percent of people go to church regularly in America, do you think? Reported. Anybody? 80%, so it was like 47% reported, but when they actually went through and did diaries and did pretty significant interviews, it was actually 24%. So people over-reported because in their identity they felt like they should be going. And they said it was the exact same stat as if you ask people if they work out, or if you ask people how often they floss their teeth. So it's pretty interesting because there's a big difference between watching what people do and observing them in context, understanding their lifestyles, and asking them questions. So I know you guys all know that, and it's really exciting also to be talking to people in the product space, because really that's the world that I live in. And although I love marketing and I understand lead generation, it's really the product side where we find out what people are actually doing and how products are working for them. So today I'm talking about devotion to addiction, and we're sort of looking at the dark side. And it's a pretty interesting and difficult topic to kind of discuss and to highlight. So I'm going to try and walk you through the differences between what I feel is a devoted experience, something people really love, and something that is addictive and compelling yet short-lived. So have you ever lost your phone, dropped it in the water? Have you guys ever misplaced your phone for a day or a week, and how did you feel when that happened? Terrible. So you kind of had that anxious feeling, that sick feeling. And there was a recent study, and we know this, but you feel panicked, desperate, and because most of the people don't go more than an hour, I know it's going to be hard for you guys during this day to put your phones aside and not check your email, but there's something called a checking habit. I'm writing a book right now, and in my need to procrastinate, I'm constantly checking my phone, and I thought, this is weird, what is this? And I did some research and found out there's an actual sort of syndrome called the checking habit. And the interesting thing about it is that people are checking their phones and they're not even conscious of doing it. So you pick up your phone, you click on it, you check your email, you just make sure that you have gotten every update, and then you put it away, and people are not even aware. So it's a little bit in the subconscious. That's a very interesting place to be because habits live in the subconscious, and as you know, as product people, we want our products and services to go into the habitual experience, right? So just under the conscious state is this subconscious state. And I was sort of thinking about this more, and I was asking my husband, well, what does this mean and where are we going? And he found this graphic, and it's this devolution of us as a society as we go further and further into technology. So I'm sort of looking at you guys today as product people and sort of saying, it would be really great if we can try together to create products and services that help us look at each other and communicate directly as much as possible and not devolve into this constantly staring at our phone all the time so that we're conscious of our behavior. And if you think about addiction versus devotion and you watch the slide, that is an actual graph dating to September down here of Zynga's stock. And it's interesting to see highly addictive experiences live long, prosper, go IPO, and then zoom into a huge dismal fall. And the thing is, and I'm sorry if there's a Zynga person here, I know it's depressing right now, but I think the main point is that we have to create experiences that people love. We have to create experiences that have meaning to people, and instead of going for what we call a mindless kind of experience, something that is satisfying in the moment, sure, it's great getting that, SMS or understanding if someone liked, you say, oh, wow, they like that, or they're looking at my photos, or whatever that stimulation is, it's temporary, because what we're really trying to do is go into seamless integration with product, services, and lifestyle so that you can really build on creating something that is going to last for the long term. And it's not an easy task. Obviously, addiction is a little bit easier to mimic because there's an actual algorithmic model for it. But looking at what I was talking about, this subconscious, just subconscious wasn't quite right, so I looked it up, and Freud said there was preconscious. Preconscious wasn't quite right, so what I finally called it is interconscious. It's automatic behavior. It's behavior that you're not completely aware of doing, but you're semi-aware. It's not completely buried underneath, and this is really where you want your product experiences to go, is into this interconscious state. And if you look at it, you're aware that something may cost a certain amount. You're aware that something is a certain price point. You're aware that you have a free trial. You're aware that a friend said that you should try this out. When it gets into the next state, the slide that didn't come up yet, sorry. So conscious, okay, this is cool, it works for me, I'll try it out. And the interconscious side is feeling the flow of it. It's understanding that, okay, this is actually working for me. It's actually pulling the right information. It's actually showing me what I need to do. And the meaningful unconscious feeling in the end that people aren't always aware of has to do with a lot of things, but mostly it's, oh, I'm in control. I feel good. I can actually spend more time with my family. So these are, you know, sort of the actual pieces that people go through as we interview people more and more and more, and we observe people more. We realize that what they say is not actually how they feel. So I'll get into that in a little bit more depth. I do understand and believe in this, what people think, and I'm always gathering as much data as I can. I believe in looking at as much information as possible. So I'm not going to just be pure ethnography or pure usability testing. But if you ask people how many people wash their hands when they go to the bathroom, how many of you guys wash your hands when you go to the bathroom? That's a survey, but you know, if you put a camera in there, only 3 out of 4 of you are gonna be doing that. And every time I say that at a conference, people say everyone's in the bathroom looking at each other now, you know, seeing if they're washing their hands. But there's this huge difference between what people think they're gonna do and what they actually do. And that's just more of what we try and do as a company. What we try and help our clients do is get into the actual lifestyles and brains of their customers so they can understand how people live. So there's also 2 sides of the approach. There's the emotional side and the rational side. And emotion is a great word that is encompassing of everything that you're not aware of. And the rational side knows that there's a sale, that, you know, it's a certain weight, or it's got a certain amount of speed. The irrational side, or the subconscious side, or that emotional side just feels, if at a gut level, they love it. You really have to capture both of these axes in order to basically survive. So what we've been doing is a lot of investigation in what we call emotional connectors. And emotional connectors are the things that actually tie people to your product in that interconscious state. And we do a lot of investigation and contextual research and interviewing, and yes, we even do some surveys to map it to actual stats. We've actually been looking at a lot of social media, and we use as much data as we can to build patterns so that we can actually create an emotional connector specific to your product, So maybe you have 2 or 3 that you're really targeting, and you need to make sure that you execute that. So as an example, here are kind of the basic connectors: ease of use, trustworthiness, meeting your needs, connection, all the way to aspiration. And interestingly, they map to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if you're going to be launching a company, first you need it to work. And then eventually you need it to help you dream and provide a better life. So it's really building on top of each other. And the way that we take a look at that is looking at the explicit or the implicit side of the experience. So things that people are aware of, things that they're unaware of, the rational side or the logical side, and then the emotional side. So if we interview someone and they say, I love it, I love your product, what are they actually trying to say? These are cues that allow us to dive deeper and understand, okay, it just works. It works for me, it was seamless. In the end, it met my needs. And what are the words that they're saying that sort of convey this? It's connected, it's portable, it's cool, it's meaningful, it's customizable. These are all the things that they're saying, but what they're really getting to are these connectors. And if you identify which connectors are all about you. If it's an ego-based company, it's all about identity and it's all about me. How do you create that and customize it for that individual? First, you need to make sure it's easy to use, so that's really the bottom line. But in the end, do you want to help people connect to other people and feel great? And do you want to help them aspire to becoming something different? So we realize that there's an experience to the whole thing and that there's input all the way to output. So what is the experience? And there's so much that goes on, and conveying this in a short talk is a little bit difficult, but from the psychological aspect to the sensory aspect, all the way through your own memories into the contextual experience, what is this experience? Oh, let me try that again.
You've got mail.
So what's interesting is as we look at, and I use AOL today just as an example of the before and the alto after. It's interesting because when AOL first came out, it was easy to use. It met people's needs. It connected people immediately to other people. And it also made them feel like they knew what they were doing on the internet, even though it wasn't the real internet, but they didn't know that. So it helped empower them and make them feel good. And as we hear that soundbite, we have maybe a certain nostalgic feeling towards that. And in reading about Alto, it's interesting because when they interviewed a ton of people that were AOL users, they really didn't want to change. People don't always want to shift and change, so they decided to create something completely new and start with the ground up. So understanding that experience from a sensorial level all the way to creating memories and nostalgia also helps me understand, for instance, ringtones. Why were ringtones so popular? Why are they still popular? Billions of dollars of revenue in the mobile space. Well, ringtones create identity, right? It creates a unique personality for you. It's fun. It connects you to others in a way. It helps you bring up memories, and it's nostalgic. So there's a lot of these emotional connectors that happen with something as simple as a ringtone. And as we look at Alto, and again, I'm using this just as an example because although signed up for a beta, still haven't gotten my invite. We'll see how the experience really is, but it's the first time in a long time that maybe AOL is trying to shift things completely into a new mental space. So they're really working on meeting people's needs and creating a better experience. So you look at something as old as a thermostat, right? And how many of you guys have this type of thermostat? And then have you ever programmed it? Did it actually work, right? So you have this in your house. They even have these in buildings where they let people feel they have control, but the thing doesn't really do anything, or in a hotel room. So it's pretty interesting how you have this device. It hasn't changed for years and years and years and years and years. It's supposed to create a feeling of control, but it really doesn't do that. So Nest came out with a new thermostat. Does anyone have this? Do you love it? What do you think about it?
That's pretty awesome.
It's awesome?
I can change the temperature without getting out of bed. I can, if I'm home and I forgot to set it away, I can do it from here.
Nice.
Or it figures out if I'm away.
It figures out if you're away, so it starts to learn. Is it learning
Oh, yeah.
as you go?
It's cold in the morning when I like to set away. It's fun.
Do you feel cool because you have it? Absolutely. So that's a connector that these people have created, the Nest founders. And if you look at what people are saying, they're saying it's delightful, right? They're saying it's pleasurable, it's comfortable. These are the things that you want to pull out as your emotional connectors that become your strategy for moving forward, because without meaning, we have no strategy, we have no product, because things are becoming such a commodity. So if we look at, in my example, the before and after, again, just as an example, you have something like an old email system that you're used to that has an okay interface, but people tend to use it because it works with a lot of systems, right? And then you have something that's simple and new and creates a new mental model, potentially. So what are the connectors? And without doing a ton of interviews, and actually doing this research makes me want to go do research to see how Alto really does fare in the space. But you have reimagining, you have relief, you have control. So those are the things that they're marketing as their emotional connectors, and those are the things that they're targeting as part of their strategy. So it's really important as we converge that we look at what's happening in the space. And I've been a real proponent, and I've been focused on the mobile space for a long time. And it's really obviously been since the iPhone that finally the US is sort of taking a leg up. So quickly getting into the techniques, I'll just try and go through this. We call it why finding. And what it is really the evolution of what has been called for decades sensory engineering. This is out of Japan. And sensory engineering took Kano and Kansei methods. Have you guys ever heard of these? And they looked at the wow factor, the things that people weren't really aware of, and what the pleasurable aspects of the experience were, and they moved it into the product space. So and this has been around for 3 decades, and so America's finally getting into understanding Kansei methodology, and we've translated into kind of a...
Just keeps me connected with my friends and work when I want to go. I don't have to be in front of a computer. It's just really accessible with the internet, email. I can get things done more efficiently.
Combine all my emails and not have to go and check everything all at once.
I can check my email 24/7. That's the most important thing to me. Checking my work email as well as my personal email.
So this is an example of a street study and some initial surveys that we will collect all the words and the transcripts. We will migrate those words into bubbles of what we call the emotional connectors and understand the why and what they're really motivated by, and understand what their needs and unmet desires are, and then move it into a number of different types of deliverables that end up being a strategy. But this is one example of a time slice so that you understand contextually what that person is doing and when they're doing it. So obviously with email, you guys know the trends, and at night, people are more looking at email on their mobile phone. They're looking more for transactional processes. There's different times and different places that it really makes a difference. So listening to what your customers don't say and trying instead to understand what they mean. So, in the end, innovation is sort of going up real fast, as well as information, but our ability and your customer's ability to cope is still the straight line going. So you need to understand that people don't advance as fast as the technology. And thinking about something as simple as Gmail moving SMS into Africa, and what that really means to them is it's connected, it's easy to use, and it helps them aspire, really gets to the bottom line of what your strategy should be. And this is 2,000 years old. And I really embrace it in its ethos, pathos, and logos, which is building trust through both mind and heart connection. And so you need to be looking at both the sort of the emotional state that you're trying to create and the goals that you have, and also obviously the rational points of view, and build trust and create that experience in a way that works for your customers. So this is just as a final thought. People don't always use your tool the way you think they might. I love this. I have so many iPod shuffles. And I'll leave it at that. And thank you guys very much.